Today, we gather to honor a musical giant whose sound shaped generations. The world is mourning the loss of Chuck Mangione, the legendary flugelhorn player whose music made millions feel so good. But among the countless tributes pouring in, none was more emotional, more powerful, or more unforgettable than the one delivered by his own brother, Chuck Mangione. At Chuck's funeral, Chuck's tribute didn't just celebrate his brother's life, it stunned everyone present with its raw emotion, honesty, and deep musical resonance. As the hall filled with musicians, family, friends, and lifelong fans, the atmosphere was heavy with respect and heartbreak. Photos of Chuck smiling with his iconic flugelhorn surrounded the room, reminding everyone of the joyful energy he brought to the world. Yet underneath all the grief, there was also a sense of deep gratitude for the music, the memories, and the impact Chuck left behind. Before the service began, there was a hushed anticipation. People whispered about the incredible legacy Chuck had created: Grammy wins, chart-topping hits, unforgettable performances, and a career that spanned decades. But what many didn't know is that behind the fame, Chuck's closest collaborator, supporter, and friend was always his older brother, Chuck. As the ceremony started, several musicians performed gentle renditions of Chuck's most beloved melodies. The flugelhorn echoed softly, almost like Chuck's spirit was still present in the room. Tears flowed freely. And then, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Chuck Mangione walked to the podium. Chuck took a deep breath. His hands shook slightly as he looked over the crowd. You could feel the weight on his heart. Not only had he lost a brother, but he had lost the man who shared every step of their musical journey. What he said next left the entire room silent. Chuck began by sharing childhood memories from their home in Rochester, stories about their early days experimenting with jazz, learning instruments, and dreaming about music together. He spoke not as a famous pianist or bandleader, but as a brother who had loved Chuck long before the world knew his name. Chuck's voice cracked as he recalled the first time Chuck picked up the flugelhorn. He laughed softly through tears as he described how Chuck practiced so passionately that neighbors thought a professional musician lived next door, even though he was just a teenager. Those early memories painted a picture of Chuck not just as a superstar, but as a warm, goofy, loving brother whose heart was as big as his talent. Then Chuck moved into the part that truly stunned the audience. He talked about the hardships Chuck never publicly shared, the struggles, the moments of doubt, the pressures of fame, and the deep responsibility he felt representing jazz to the world. Chuck revealed their private conversations, the late-night talks, and the promises they made to always stay true to their musical roots. And then came the musical tribute. Chuck walked toward the piano, sat down, and placed his hands on the keys. The hall fell silent once more. He began to play a soft, haunting arrangement of "Feels So Good." Slowly, other musicians joined in. And as the melody floated through the room, it felt like Chuck himself was speaking through the music. Many attendees said it was one of the most emotional performances they had ever witnessed. The first part of the funeral ended with a standing ovation, not just for Chuck, but for Chuck's stunning tribute that reminded everyone of the deep bond between the two brothers. As the service shifted into its second half, the emotional energy remained powerful. People were still wiping tears from their eyes after Chuck's breathtaking performance. It felt less like a farewell and more like a spiritual celebration of a man who spent his life lifting others through music. The next segment began with close friends and musicians stepping forward to speak about Chuck's life. They described his generosity, his humor, and his incredible passion for teaching young musicians. Chuck was never the kind of artist who simply performed and left. He mentored, encouraged, and uplifted anyone who wanted to learn. One speaker mentioned how Chuck could spend hours helping a young trumpet player, treating them with the same respect he gave to world-class artists. But the most powerful moment came when Chuck returned to the microphone. This time, he shared the final conversation he had with Chuck. The room went silent again. Chuck revealed that in their last talk, Chuck told him he wasn't afraid. He said he felt fulfilled, that he had accomplished everything he wanted, and that the music they created together would continue to speak for them long after they were gone. Chuck told Chuck, "Music is eternal, and as long as someone plays our songs, we will never truly leave." These words broke the audience. Even musicians who had performed on the biggest stages couldn't hold back their tears. Gap then spoke about Chuck's impact on the world. He reminded everyone that Chuck wasn't just famous for a few hits, he had reshaped how people saw jazz. He brought warmth, joy, and accessibility to a genre that many once considered too complex for everyday listeners. Chuck made jazz feel good for everyone. The funeral concluded with